Hello, in this video we'll deploy a Contactzilla address book to Android devices using NinjaOne MDM. If you're deploying contact lists to iOS devices, we do have a video walkthrough for that as well, which you'll find in the description below. If you've deployed Contactzilla to iPhones before, the only difference on Android is that CardDAV isn't built in. So instead of a configuration profile, we deploy a lightweight connector app called Contactzilla Sync, which runs in the background and feeds contacts into the device's native Contacts app. I'm a big fan of NinjaOne's interface, and the overall layout makes this process very straightforward. So the flow is, in Contactzilla, generate the Android JSON configuration for the address book. In NinjaOne, add Contactzilla Sync from managed Google Play into your Android policy. And finally, paste the JSON values into managed app configuration and then save the policy. From the end user's point of view, the result is simple. The contacts appear in the native Android Contacts app. So for this walkthrough, I'm assuming that your Android Enterprise is already set up in NinjaOne and that you have Android devices enrolled and online. And as you can see, I have an Android device ready to go under my internal infrastructure organization. Let's switch over to our Contactzilla dashboard. And here we are. I've opened up the address book that I want to deploy, and I've clicked on Device Connections. The first thing I'm going to do is select Android from the drop-down here for connection type. The next step is to assign the connection to a team member. So in Contactzilla, you can assign a connection directly to any team member, and that's useful if you just want to get contacts onto that person's phone individually. They can scan a QR code and set it up themselves very easily. But for MDM rollouts, we use a special kind of user called an MDM user, which is a device-only account. So let's create one now. I'll head over to Team Members and add an MDM user device-only access. The email address here is arbitrary, so you can put anything in there. Hit Add, and that's done. You'll see that MDM user added here under Team Members. Let's head back over to Device Connections, and I'm going to select that new MDM user that we just created. Label Sync, I'm just going to leave as the default setting. And now decide on the access level for the end users. So for most managed rollouts, full read-only is a popular choice because it prevents any accidental changes to your master contact list. You can, of course, do a full read-write rollout, giving the end users the ability to edit contacts. And if you do select that, we have a handy feature just here to give them that editing capability, but still prevent them from deleting any contacts. And I do want to touch on selective read-only because it's a very useful feature. You don't have to send the entire address book to every device. Instead, you can choose one or more labels, and only the contacts with those labels are deployed to the devices. So if I just add a couple here and hit create, you can see my selective read-only rollout is here ready to go. But I'm going to go with a read-only. And finally, you want to set the number of device connections to match your rollout and then click create. And under the new device connection, I'll hit setup and download the Android profile we can deploy directly in Ninja. So now in NinjaOne, we'll deploy Contactzilla Sync from managed Google Play, then configure it using the values from the JSON file that we've just downloaded. So go to Administration, Policies, MDM Policies, and open your default Android mobile policy. Then under Applications, click Management, and we're not going to touch any of these settings. We'll scroll down and click Add Apps and choose Play Store. I'll search for Contactzilla Sync, click on it, and then hit Select and close this window, and there it is. So I'm going to click the three-dot menu and choose Edit. So let's change the assignment type to Force Installed. This makes the app install automatically and prevents the user from removing it. Change the default permission policy to Grant. This automatically grants the contact permissions so there are no prompts on the device. And everything else on this tab can be left unspecified. We'll move over to the Managed Configurations tab, and this is one of the things I love about the UI, that we can get the whole thing set up from this one area. We're going to leave these first few fields as they are, but you can change the default sync interval here. If I set this to 30, Contactzilla Sync will check for updates every 30 minutes. So scrolling down, we just have a few fields to complete. I'll open up the JSON file we downloaded and copy these values directly across. The organization name is our Contactzilla team name, in this case, Skyline Development Group. And I'll paste that into the Managed By field as well. Next, I'll copy the email address and the password from the JSON. And finally, the account name, which is simply the name of the address book, in this case, Project Cascade Tower. So I'm happy with that. We can leave all the other settings and hit update. Now, once we save this policy, the updated configuration is pushed to enrolled Android devices. If the device is online, then the change is typically applied within seconds. So let's have a look on our test device. And I can see that Contactzilla Sync has been installed. I'll open that, and there is my Project Cascade Tower address book. The app will sync automatically based on the interval we configured earlier, but to kick things off, I'm going to hit this manual sync button here. So back over to the Contacts app, and depending on how you have accounts set up on your devices, you may need to go into the Contact Accounts by pressing the avatar here and selecting the new Contactzilla address book just here. If I click the hamburger menu, I can also view our labels. So let's, for example, take this engineers group and view the contacts in there. Let's head over to our Contactzilla dashboard and make a change to a contact and watch that update on our phone. I'm going to filter down to that engineers group by applying a label filter. And let's take the top contact here and make an edit to the name. Now, we did set a sync interval when rolling out this address book of 30 minutes, so that will keep the address book nicely up to date. But if I want to test this now, I can go to the Contactzilla Sync app and manually sync. And we can see that that contact's name is updating already. If I want to deploy another address book to this device group, let's say, for example, I have some critical contacts that need adding, and we want to keep them separate. I'm going to select the address book here in Contactzilla, and then go to Device Connections once again. I'll choose Android, MDM User, Read Only for the access type, and this time I'll tick this optional feature here to add a lock emoji so that end users know that these contacts are read only. Number of device connections to match your rollout, and then create. I now have a new device connection for this address book, so I'm going to download the JSON file once again. So let's switch back over to NinjaOne, and we're going to update the existing Contactzilla Sync app configuration with the new address book details. So let's use the three dots for Contactzilla Sync again and choose Edit. Switch to the Managed Configurations tab. And as I scroll down, you can see the values we entered earlier for our first address book. Well, to deploy the second address book, we'll populate the Account To fields. So I'll open up the second JSON file that we just downloaded and copy the values across. For this second account, we only need the email address, the password, and the account name, which is simply the name of the address book, in this case, Critical Project Partners. And then leave everything else and click Update, followed by Save. And I'm prompted to authenticate that. Over on the device, let's check Contactzilla Sync to see the new address book. And there it is. And now over to the Contacts app, and I can choose which address book I'm looking at by going to the avatar in the top right here. And although our Contactzilla address books were set to read only for this deployment, if I do want to add a new contact with the plus icon here, I can choose to do that directly on the device or on another account if preferable. And that's it. We've deployed 2 Contactzilla address books to an Android device using NinjaOne. And if you want to try this yourself, You'll find a link to our free Contactzilla trial in the description below.